Good afternoon. It's a great pleasure to be here today at the European Commission. We are in the middle of USEF, the Sustainable Energy Week, and we are kindly hosted by Mrs. Mechthild Wörsdörfer, Deputy Director General in European Commission, and I am also with MEP Pellerin Carlin from Normandy, and recently elected MEP since a year, and with a strong research background and keen to put the scientific messages to the political institutions. So thank you so much for your availability.
Happy to sit here with Thomas and have a discussion on solar heat. So thank you for organizing it. So on your questions, I think we indeed have a regulatory framework called Fit for 55, which we have to implement together with the member states. And I think that will give the predictability, the regulatory framework to move ahead. And I will just mention two examples which are particularly relevant. We agreed in the last mandate on a renewables directive with a 42.5% target for 2030. So that will continue, of course. We won't change that. And we will work with the member states to implement it. So I think that is a priority from a political, but also from a technical level, because it's not only the target in this renewables directive, but there are also measures in it. And that includes deadlines, permitting, and other measures to come back, hopefully, to a market situation also for your industry, which is going then upwards again, because we know that we need to accelerate renewables in all sectors. So I think that is really the aim also of that Renewables Energy Directive, which also includes binding targets for heating and cooling. So member states have to respect it, they have to implement it. The second example from Fit for 55 is the Energy Performance of Building Directive, which focuses on buildings, as the name says, which is an important sector to be decarbonized. And here, after long discussions, we have a solar mandate. And that we are also working with the member states to implement it. We work with best practice, because some member states are more advanced than others. But also we work with associations like Solar Heat Europe. I think you have also a key role to continue your discussion with your national association, with the member states, sometimes regionally, to help implement it. There is really the aim, the objectives to go ahead, both on energy efficiency and renewables. And we need your industry to take up, because the market predictability until 2030 and beyond, and that will be the next step, but until 2030 is there, and we need to speed up.
There is no coming back to the world that we knew before. We now live in a world where, the current fascist regime in Russia is at war against us, against European democracy. So what we need to do is to phase out our dependence on fossil gas, because it's imported and it is expensive. Currently, the way we've been doing that is shifting away from Putin to Trump gas, which, not the best idea, but this is something that we needed to do in the short term. But it is clear, and the Clean Industrial Deal says that clearly our exit strategy is to be able to rely on homegrown energy. And homegrown energy in Europe are first and foremost energy that are renewables. And if we zoom out a little, what we are trying to do in Europe is what we call in academia a socio-technical transition on a massive scale. It's something that from a scale perspective resembles an industrial revolution. And arguably it is also an industrial revolution that we are doing. How can we move away from an energy system that is based on polluting fossil fuels that we import to a system and that we use inefficiently, to a system based on the efficient use of homegrown European energy? And the two main challenges that we have, so it's actually only one. It's policy consistency So the consistency between the different policies at a given moment. And I'm assuming that Mechthild is spending some time to make sure that all those plans actually go into the right direction and all the DGs talk to one another, et cetera, et cetera. By the way, that's the same in the European Parliament between the different committees. But the second thing that we tend to forget is the policy consistency over time. Such a massive socio-technical transition takes decades.
Policy consistency and subvention consistency, if I may say so.
Yeah, by the way, policy
see...
means also,
yes.
I mean, from my perspective, policy is not only regulation, it's also investment. Yes. And clearly, we need to have a long-term climate investment plan at the European level. By that, I mean EU plus the 27 member states, yes, plus the regions, because when it comes to buildings, especially in places like Germany, for instance, it's mostly actually a region, let's say a land level thing than a federal state thing.
I mean, what we spoke about, the predictability, the framework 2030, we have a climate law 2050 to decarbonize. So I think the big picture is there, but I agree that implementation, strict implementation, but also a continuous dialogue with the member states and the industry and all the stakeholders is absolutely needed. Mm-hmm. So we can have best practice. We could maybe also look at worst practice and try to avoid them or also change them. And over time, we need to make sure that everyone is on board. So the social side, I very much agree that all citizens are part of it. But I think we have only one way where we want to go. And that we need to stick, and we will stick to it.
It also happens that a lot of SMEs are in areas that are easier to decarbonize through existing technologies, including solar heat, than other industries, for instance, like primary green steel, which is obviously much, much harder and much more time-consuming just because of the scale of the project. So maybe to end on a concrete example, one sector that I think should be invested more from a policy perspective is the agri-food sector. We know that it is important because obviously the cheaper the agri-food process is, the cheaper the food is for the people, and the more also we can have in the agri-food value chain more money going to the people that actually grow the food. So that's an area that is beneficial. A lot of the agri-food energy is currently fossil gas. And one of the reasons why we saw the increase of anything from cheese to beer has been the result of that Vladimir Putin decision to cut off Russian gas supply to Europe, leading to an inflation and really a gas shock that we saw in 21-22. So to end on that specific example, back when I was still a researcher 2 or 3 years ago, I got presented with a project of using solar heat to brew beer in Denmark. That is well functioning, and if it's feasible in Denmark, it is feasible in Normandy, and if it's feasible in Normandy, it's feasible in Spain and in Greece for obvious reasons. And besides beer, we have a lot of agri-food sectors that require that level of heat that is 100% manageable with very mainstream solar heating technologies. We can also look at higher temperatures, 200, 400 Celsius degrees, of course. One key missing piece of the puzzle today is still heat storage. And I think it will make sense to invest more in heat storage in a way that is technology neutral, because we have a lot of different heat storage technologies. But if we manage to make heat storage very cheap, it will be excellent for heat pumps, for solar heating, for concentrated solar power, but also for nuclear heat. So for a bunch of technologies that are able to produce heat that we can later store to make sure that it's available when we need it.
My understanding is that thermal energy storage is still much cheaper compared to power storage. So this, in terms of competitive advantage of using direct renewable heat sources, is definitely something we need to capitalize, and which we can share. We can share the same storage with geothermal, and there are great synergies. And you're looking at the future. We saw lots of publications coming out on 26th of February with the Clean Industrial Deal, the Affordable Energy Action Plan. And within that, we know there is the affordable housing plan as well, and the announcement of a heating and cooling strategy. The last one dates from 2016. So we, together with other renewable heat sectors, are really pleased to see this upcoming strategy. Could have been needed earlier, but already the fact to have it now is good, because it shows we really need to give more visibility to the heat agenda. Heat is half overall, 80% in buildings, 60% for industry. So this is going to be the opportunity to really shed more light on this important energy need. So how we also know that it's going to come in parallel to the electrification strategy, grid action plan. And there are synergies. We need all good clean technologies, but we also need to have the political signals that direct renewable heat sources like solar heat have their role to play, that the mix of solution and the hybridization of them working together in an efficient way, energy efficiency is also here to play its role, is really the solution. So how do you see, Mechthild, the way forward for this heating and cooling strategy, and Thomas as well, on this, what can we do and how can we help for this upcoming strategy?
As I mentioned, the focus, and we are rather new in the mandate, 6 months, so we still have 4.5 years. So we cannot do everything in the beginning, but the focus is competitiveness, security, decarbonization, and everything will be under these objectives. We, by the way, have the Repower EU roadmap as well to really push out Russian gas imports as soon as possible. This is another big priority. So in that context, we will come out by the end of this year with the grids package, which is most likely a change in the legal requirements for trans-European networks for energy. Linked to that, as you rightly say, there is this important sector of heating and cooling. So we have some legislation where we will implement what I mentioned before, but we will really look in that heating and cooling strategy what more needs to be done at the local, national level. We know the importance of decarbonization of heating and cooling, and thermal storage, which was just mentioned by both of you, will be part of that strategy. What can we do more? What are the best practice? I think I'm a strong believer that the European Commission can also facilitate the exchange of good practices from your sector in some of our EU member states, and also then apply it in other sectors or in other countries, region. So we will look at our heating and cooling strategy at local, affordable and clean sources of heat, including solar energy. So that is really where we are working, building on what has been already for action, and we will do also an open consultation sooner or later, because it's foreseen for Q1 next year. Electrification, as you say, rightly so, is a bit hand in hand. We mentioned it in our Clean Industrial Deal that we need to go from roughly 22% now, stagnating since a decade, to more than 30% by 2030. These strategies will be more or less prepared in parallel, so your input on both heating and cooling, as I said, more on the local side, on the regional side, looking at the cost side, but also then looking at taxes, obstacles, sometimes at national level. Often taxes are national, but there we can push member states. So that is the idea, and all input from your side is very much welcome.
It's an idea that will not politically fly now, but I'm still putting it in the public debate. One thing we could have started to do in the 90s, but better late than never, is to set up a price floor for fossil gas. By the way, that is also true for fossil oil, because oil is used also a lot in heating, especially in rural areas. So for instance, we could say as Europeans, the price floor for fossil gas will be 50 euros per megawatt hour. And that will be sending a very clear signal to everyone that the price of gas will never be lower than that. In terms of public policy, how do we achieve that? There are ways to do that, but one way that on top of this will provide a lot of money to the EU budget to repay the debts that we have contracted under COVID would be to use custom tariff. You can have floating custom tariff that change every week or every month. And for instance, when the price of gas is at 80 euros, the custom is zero. But when the price is at 30 euros, you have a custom tariff of 20 euros to make sure that that floor, of 50 euros is met. This is virtually never debated in Brussels. But since custom tariffs are, let's say, in fashion, since Trump gained back power in the US, I think it would be helpful that we provide predictability for all economic actors. And the vast majority of those custom tariffs will furthermore go to the EU budget, which will be a way to repay the debt that we've contracted under COVID in a way that is smarter than by trying to diminish future public spending that are strategic for the future of Europe.
I think we need to reduce the system cost so everyone can benefit. We need to look at cheap, domestic produced, decarbonized sources, like solar heat. And thank you for your examples here. So we will make sure that the conditions are right to continue that path in an accelerated way. And so the continuous dialogue, the continuous best practice, but also strict implementation on what we have are key elements of that.
To speak the truth, at least the way I see it, we're going through, as Game of Thrones would say, winter is coming, like winter is here. Like we are in the political winter of the green transformation. What to do then? First, keep calm and carry on. Winters don't last forever. So the first thing to do is to stay the course, to continue to be as courageous as one can be, to continue on the right course. The second thing we need to do in the winter is to think big about the things we can do in the spring. Winter is here, but spring is coming. I do not know when the political spring will come when it comes to the green transformation of our economy, but it will come at some point. And so therefore, I also would like to invite you, while you are in Bordeaux, to think big. What are the things we could do under a different political context? And solar heat is one of those no-regret options, because it's probably, together with energy efficiency, the most resilient option that one can have. And therefore, I urge you to think big, think outside the box for stuff that can be done today, obviously, but stuff that will also be able to be implemented when spring will come.
Thank you so much. And I really hope that we will definitely build on your ideas and your great inspiration. I'd like to thank you warmly again. Talking about winter, thank you warmly from my side. Please count on us. We want to be your partner for this social technical transition, which solar heat can contribute to. So thank you again very much, and looking forward to pursue the discussion. Thank you.